All right, so we've got the first unit in the Middle Imperial Roman Army, and these will also serve in my end of Empire army as well that I'm planning. My truly late Roman Empire army as well. So they'll be able to see dual service. So these are a mix of Aventine miniatures and footsore miniatures. So I pulled from the Aventine Middle Imperial range, and then I also pulled from the Footsore Late Roman range for these cataphracts, and also actually I think there might be some. No, yeah, those are the two manufacturers there. So I'm planning to do another unit of cataphracts as well for the late Imperial Empire army. So yes, cataphracts, they really start to kind of become important during this time period. I was really happy how this unit came out paint-wise. Unfortunately, and you'll see this across the board with this army, is that I just varnished these the other day, and there's kind of a varnishing disaster here. So it might not be reading on the camera as much, but in person you can definitely tell. I think the varnish went on maybe a little too thick, and it has really kind of ruined some of the models. I don't really know what to do about it. You know, case in point, you can see this guy here. A lot more detail before the varnish was applied, and you can see it's kind of mushed out the detail, and then some static grass got stuck in the varnish too. Really unfortunate. I should have done the grass after varnishing. So rookie mistake, I guess. And I guess I don't know, the varnish just came on too thick. But yes, I think they look okay from 3 feet away, but it's really, you know, a little frustrating when you spend some time on a unit and then the varnish just kind of, you know, ruins it. I think you can see this guy too. Maybe not showing up on camera, but the varnish is kind of done a number on these figures. And yeah, the colors I think just looked way better too before the varnishing as well. So on to our next unit. All right, so here we go. We've got the first command base. These are all from A&A Miniatures, and again, very disappointing because when I originally painted these, I think they actually look quite good. But after the varnish has gone on, I mean, you may or may not be able to see it on the camera, but it has really, you could see the varnish like there on the shield, and on the back of the shield, and on the trumpet and stuff. So these figures, I feel like, have been totally ruined in the varnishing process. Now, will I still use them? Yes, but it's, you know, disappointing when you've spent some time on a unit to have these kind of, you know, varnishing. It ruined by the varnishing. You can see too on the back of the helmet and the cloak, the varnish is visible there. So a little upset. This is the first time I've ever really had problems with varnishing. Maybe I'm just out of practice. It's been a while since I've done it, but it is a little frustrating, and I don't really know what to do about it. All right, on to the next one. All right, here we've got a unit of cavalry. These are all Aventine miniatures. These are kind of from the earlier part of the 3rd century, but I mean, the helmets, the equipment is generally fine. I think they should do well as part of the Middle Imperial Roman Army. All right, here we have our next unit, and again, one impacted by the Great Varnishing Disaster. But here we have the anti-cataphract clubmen. So during this time, the 3rd century, the Romans are going in against firstly the Parthians and their cataphracts in the earlier parts, and then the Sasanian Persians later, who kind of replaced the Parthians. So campaigns in the east were a big deal, and Rome actually suffered some absolutely humiliating losses as well in this time period. But to counter the cataphracts, the Romans deployed these clubmen units. So guys using clubs to kind of try and beat through the cataphract armor. So the way I've done them is basically I have a mix of the A&A clubmen in there. They sell them as Palestinian clubmen, I think. And then I mixed in some, to make up the numbers, I've mixed in some War Games Atlantic infantry. And my thinking there was kind of the clubmen would probably be supported by some more regular type infantry as well. So yeah, the cataphract casualties are from A&A miniatures as well. So again, this unit has been affected by the Great Varnishing disaster. You can really see the varnish on the clubs. And yes, it's kind of disappointing because you know, you varnish the miniatures to protect them, but they looked considerably better before the varnish, just in terms of the colors. And then you have all the visible varnishing as well, kind of disappointing. All right, so now we have our next unit here, command base. So you've seen this one in the work in progress. You know, the bench updates, a little foot commander, miniatures are this guy is from Aventine and the rest are from A&A. I really like this guy sipping on his, probably not coffee in the Roman times, but sipping on his soup, you know, watching the battle unfold. Unfortunately, again, really affected by the varnishing here. You can see the varnish on the standards. You can see it on the shields. Again, a little depressing that the varnish, you know, the varnish is kind of ruining the models. But what, I don't know. Just got to be more careful next time, I guess, is the only thing I can do, I suppose. All right, so this unit is the Lanciarii. So these are the light infantry, and basically, they're somewhat heavily armored for, you know, light infantry, but they're kind of the skirmishers out in front of the troops. So these are A&A miniatures and War Games Atlantic as well. And this guy is actually a War Games Atlantic with a metal Aventine helmet that I stuck on him for the command figure. All right, and now we have got the Legionary Infantry. So we'll just do a little flyby here. I made them in this kind of the shield wall. I think it turned out really well. I think these units look really good. You might have seen these on my bench updates before as well. So this time period is really a transitional period for the Roman army. So you can see I did a mix of the large oval shields and then also the classic rectangular scutums. So this was a transitional period. The sources I used this great book, which I'll show you later. But basically, this book talked about how both shields were in use, at least for a part of the century. And then by the end of the century, the rectangular shields will have probably fully disappeared, and the oval shields are the only ones left. But at least through the middle portion of the time period, they both existed side by side. And this is also a time period where you see the differences between the auxiliaries and the regular legionaries kind of disappear in terms of the infantry. They're both fighting as these heavy infantry. So why is there the change over to these larger shields? Usually these reforms are believed to have kind of taken place starting under Septimius Severus, who kind of comes into power after, if you've seen the movie Gladiator, basically in the aftermath of Commodus kind of being terrible, eventually Septimius Severus, this warrior emperor, ends up kind of taking control. And he fights a lot against the Parthians. He destroys the Parthians. And his reforms might be, basically the idea behind this is probably making the legions more adaptable against cavalry and missile fire. So instead of, the classic look is kind of designed for fighting against infantry like the Celts and people like that, this is more for fighting against cavalry. So the shield walls, using thrusting spears more, using the larger oval shields. That's kind of where that is coming from. So I'm just noticing it now on camera is that another kind of varnishing incident here. So I applied varnish over these shield transfers to protect them, and they've actually shrunk in the past overnight, actually, since I put the varnish on the shields. So now you can see the white borders. So I'll have to actually repaint over these shields, I think. So again, that's a little upsetting because I, varnished the figures to prevent the shield transfers from shrinking, and yet they shrunk after I varnished. So very unfortunate there. And then for our next unit, we've got the Assyrian archers. These are a mix of Victrix and A&A miniatures. Again, really disappointing. This unit, I feel like, has been totally ruined by the varnishing as well. I think they looked really good before I put the varnish on, but the varnish has just ruined the colors. It's ruined the contrast, really flattened the miniatures, really kind of depressing results there, actually. So I'm a little upset by that as well, because I thought these guys were actually looking pretty good before I put the varnish on. But it just really, I don't know, it's really changed the colors, and they just don't look very good to me now. But I thought they looked pretty good before the varnishing. So what you're gonna do, I guess. But yeah, these archers, auxiliary archers, pretty important part of the. All right, and last but not least, we have the Numidian light cavalry. So a lot of times I think people think of, when they think of the Numidians, they think of like the Punic Wars and that era, but they actually are found throughout the whole Roman period. And I guess Numidian or Moorish cavalry, you could call them. So they're in the Punic Wars, of course, but they also play a large role in like Julius Caesar's time period. You also see them in the early imperial period, so they're on Trajan's column, and they continue to be important into the middle imperial and late Roman time. So this is a unit of light Moorish cavalry to kind of finish out the army. And this is an army where you have the full range of Rome's military present here. So there are lots of units that I didn't include that could be included in a Middle Imperial army, like camels, camel-mounted troops, horse archers. All those kinds of troops were also pretty prominent in this time period. All right, and you may have noticed I've got some guys on the background. So I laid out the table to try out a rule set that I've been wanting to try called Dux Bellorum by Daniel Mersey. So on this side we have the Germanic troops laid out. So these actually are archers I've completed since my last updates. We've got the Germanic warriors. Most of these, luckily, these I also had varnished, but they still turn out looking really good. So I don't know what happened with this latest batch of guys. But we've got the Germanic hordes, which this is an army I'm going to be expanding on greatly. Probably actually, well, you'll see it over time, but I want to actually probably increase this by like a factor of 4. So I've got a huge project I'm planning, which I will tell you about. But this is my Germanic horde, which I think looks awesome so far. This is one of my favorite armies that I have painted, and I really love the Romans that I did too. I'm just like really bummed about the varnishing. It's getting me down. This is a unit. This is the newer Victrix Goths slash late Roman, unarmored late Romans that they released. So I painted mine up as Goths or Germans or whatever. And there are actually some War Games Atlantic Goths in there too. And most of these are a mix of the Victrix Germans and then the War Games Foundry Germans as well. And that's an awesome range. We've got some more archers. Again, these are a mix of Victrix and War Games Atlantic. and then another unit of cavalry. Mostly foundry, but with some footsore, and then also some gripping beast plastics mixed in with my German cavalry. So the goal here is to try out the rules. I mean, that's why I just did kind of a flat open plane, just to basically get the very basics of the rules down and just put all the stuff I've been working on the table. So I think it'll be a cool report as well. So just to finish out the video, I did want to show you the source, the main source I actually used for this army. So it's this book, The Army of Maximinus Thrax, which I actually got from Carowin Sari Publishers or whatever. They do the War Game Soldiers and Strategy magazine. But anyways, this is a great book to check out. And of course, I'm running into disaster just kind of doing this one-handed. But the book has great kind of illustrations of these helmets. It's kind of an unusual period in Roman history. Like the equipment, some of it looks kind of familiar, other looks kind of very strange, like the helmet on the left side. But it has some good illustrations of troops from the period. This was really my big guide for creating this army, what troops to select. And this book is all about Maximinius Thrax's campaigns in Germany. And there were, it's kind of one that actually there's been more archaeology that has come to light about this battle. In recent times, it's like the Battle of Hohenzollern or something like that. But yeah, you can see I based one of my units off of this illustration. But anyways, great book. Lots of great illustrations. Really got me into this that's a Lancieri, dude. Really got me into this period of history. I based my army heavily off of the research in this book. So what's next? I think I'm either going to be transitioning. I've got a lot of Germans to paint. And the big so here's the battlefield actually all laid out. But the big project to come, I think, is I'm kind of thinking about taking a game to Historicon, not this summer, but next summer, and basically trying to do something pretty impressive. So I'm thinking of kind of doing the Battle of Strasbourg, and I think that was like 357 AD. So I think from this army, I mean, all the Germans will be usable, but on the Roman side, I think only the cataphracts I'll end up using. But that battle, I want to do it on a 1:25 scale, I think. So that will be, I think, around, well, it'll be some pretty large armies involved. That's kind of the goal, but till next time, see you around.